Welcome everyone to today's case study, bringing together panelists on the topic of adopting CK-12 district-wide. I'm Carl, and my colleague Katie and I will be moderating today's conversation with our guest panelists.
So these case studies are designed to have a more conversational feel than our core webinars. At the bottom of the Zoom window, you all should see an option to raise your hand. If you want to verbally ask a question and engage with our panelists, please press this button. I will allow you to talk at that point in time, so it will kind of give you a prompt accordingly. We'll stop throughout this occasionally for questions, and our host will send you the option, as I just said, to unmute yourself. So press that button and start speaking through your computer or headphones if you raise your hand and get that option. If you don't want to speak, that's not a problem. We will have an active Q&A window for you to type any of your questions. If your question is for a specific person on our panel, please identify them by name when you type your question. And just a reminder that we are recording this session and we'll have it posted on YouTube page within about 24 hours. So with that, let's meet our panelists. Both of them are actually from the San Diego area. Their districts are about an hour apart and they serve different students, but they both have adopted CK-12. I actually met our first panelist, Beth, when she came up to our offices here in April and participated in a Future of Learning Summit with us. And Poway was an important voice in that conversation. And our next panelist comes from a district just east of San Diego. Grossmont Union High School District supports 13 high schools. Dan McDowell is the Director of Instructional Technology, and he's been an important voice in the use of OER and also the Go Open movement.
So let's all turn on our cameras and find out more about both of our panelists and their journey so far with CK-12. So Dan and Beth, there's Beth, and we'll get Dan there. Welcome to both of you. And I think we're going to start with Poway and then move south in San Diego there. And I'm wondering, could you both give us a little 2-minute video to all of our participants explaining the context of how you're currently using CK-12? Beth, you need to unmute.
All right, there we go. Hi, everyone. I'm Beth from Poway Unified School District. I'm really glad to be here and help out any way that I can. So we began our CK-12 journey a couple of years ago when we were looking at middle school resources. Our process has been to seek out open education resources as possible resources for adoption as part of our instructional materials process and procedure. So our middle school teachers were interested and they kind of started the momentum, and then we added biology, physics, and what am I missing? Chemistry teachers along the way. So it's been all science, and primarily we are looking for, as we transition to next generation science standards, and we were looking specifically at the California State Science Framework, we were, excited to adopt those new standards and also the instructional methodologies. But what happened, particularly at middle school, was that the state didn't have their list of approved resources sort of in a timely way. And what ended up happening was our teachers had done the work around the instructional shifts and the changes in their content areas, because in California with middle school, we had the choice of whether we wanted to go subject specific or if we wanted to adopt an integrated design curriculum, and our teachers chose the integrated pathway. So it made it difficult because there were no state-approved resource lists to look at the time. So our teachers began putting together their own materials, which was great. It really was, and we learned a lot from that process. But one of the key pieces that was missing from the units that we were putting together was the reading portion specifically. And so that's how we we're turned on to CK-12, primarily looking at it from a standpoint of what are we missing with the units we've designed, and CK-12 really helped to fill that gap in. We like it also because it's kept up to date. It's really relevant for our students, and we are officially adopting them at our school board meeting, like I said, for both for all of the the following courses: 8th grade, biology, chemistry, and physics. So
Great.
this is my first day back from vacation. I hope that was good. I'm thinking, what am I forgetting here? But that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Great. All right, and Dan, I know that you and I have been talking for several years and wondering, you know, you guys took a very different approach. So kind of talk about where you started and how you got to where you are today.
Okay. So Dan McDowell, and I actually just changed positions. I'm now the Director of Learning and Innovation. So I'm, as of July 1. So it's
Congratulations.
Thank you. A recent shift. So we started ours through the lens of open educational resources. So we went one-to-one with Chromebooks 4 years ago. And as we started that transition, and actually even before that, we had a lot of teachers starting to ask about digital content. And at the time, the digital textbooks were as much, if not more, than traditional textbooks. And what a lot of teachers had already started doing was abandoning their textbooks and just kind of piecemealing things together. And one of the things that I got inspired by as the Go Open movement, was kicking off is, what if we built our own? And then as we started going and started planning, we realized we had some different layers to those materials. And the bottom layer, the foundation, or I guess it could be the top layer, but the first one was that core content. So textbook style materials, because we need that reading resource. The next level would be the supplemental resources. So the readings, the activities, the videos, and then the final layer is instructional materials. So the lessons that kind of pull all that together. So as we started looking around for materials, open materials, especially in science, because that's where we were really taking off, we found CK-12, and what that allowed us to do was pull in these fully vetted materials that that other teachers were already using. Some of our teachers were even already using, and start to embed them into our greater OER work. And so what we have now is all our textbook, that first layer in our 4 science subjects. So biology, space and earth science, that's actually space and earth science is 9th grade, biology 10th grade, and then physics and chemistry are all using CK-12 text materials for their foundation. And they've all been board adopted. Space and earth science and biology 2 years ago, and then physics and chemistry just this last April. And what we've been able to do is then spend our time really wrapping our brains around NGSS, the change in instructional, the change in the instructional model. And we have teams of teachers who are coming together to build those materials and collect more supplemental materials, and really kind of digging deeply into their practice, which has been monumental for those teachers participating. And now that it's going district-wide, and we will not spend money on science textbooks. Thank you. We are not, seriously, $1.8 million that
wow.
we are saving now. And that's not like, money that they're just, squirreling away. That's money now that we're investing in probeware for our science classrooms. It's money that we're investing in the teachers who are doing the work, who are taking time off during the school year. And we just had a bunch of days where teachers came in over the summer and spent the entire, 4 days just kind of digging into their content and building materials on top of that. So we came into CK-12 from that perspective, looking for open resources and then finding really a fully baked resource. And then for our science, now we are working on some social science work as well. And while CK-12 doesn't necessarily have those resources developed by CK-12, the platform is going to be where we deliver those materials as well. So it's not just what's already there, it's also the ability to add more to it and even reorder and adapt what is there. So we didn't use any of the books straight up that are on CK-12. What we did is we made our own, which again, super powerful. The teachers got to make that decision, which I think is really empowering as well. So that's the short, the short version of the long story.
Sure. And I'll just say too, I know that Dan, you weren't able to come to the Future Learning Summit, but you sent Franz. And while Franz was here, he he announced that on that Thursday night, your board passed your newest ones, as you said, in April. And it was really exciting, I think, for all the people that had gathered for the summit to be a part of that and to really see the direction. You know, you and I spoke probably 3 years ago now, and you had this plan, which was, we're going to do this right, and we're going to get board approval, and this is what, we're going to do this very intentionally. And, you know, as one of the early adopters into the Go Open movement, like I think you've presented a really good plan that has paid off, and it's now happening. So let's transition now to the next question, which is kind of implementation strategy. Like how do you use this now that it's been developed at the district level? Do you make it a requirement that every teacher and every student use this? Is it part of a menu? Like how did each district deal with that so that the school participates in some way?
So here at Poway, I can speak to that. I mean, we're still in earlier stages. We're, you know, just at the precipice, I would say, of implementation. Although, like in Dan's circumstances, we've had some early adopters who've been using the CK-12 materials even before the quote-unquote official adoption. So yes, Franz was very inspiring at the summit, and we knew that we wanted to also take the curriculum materials to the board for adoption as well. So that will happen for us in August. And part of that process is that it becomes then really official. And our teachers know that. And so there is an expectation that these are the materials that will be used for our students. And what we've been doing, much like you know, the teachers over at Grossmont, our science teachers have been working together to, first of all, go through the chapters in the books that have already been developed by CK-12, and we're, you know, modifying them for our needs. And then we will be incorporating them in a very focused way into the units that we've already developed. So there'll be intentionality around the use of those materials. Like I said before, I think this first phase of the implementation, we're really going to focus on the reading, although I have a feeling that very quickly our teachers will see, and even in the vetting process that they're doing now, they're already looking and seeing that they can use those, help me with the term, Carl, you know, the
simulations and flicks, interactive.
Yeah, and the flicks and the interactions, yeah, they're quickly seeing the relevance of those and how they're going to use those in a minute. So absolutely, there is an expectation that those materials will be used, and it'll be nice too, because as Dan mentioned, you know, the savings from not adopting and purchasing a publishing material resource, you're saving that money and you're able to invest in your teachers. And so as a result, we're going to be able to pull in our teachers on a regular basis to check in with them, to see how it's going, and to make those modifications as necessary. And what that allows too is just some really rich collaboration to take place with our teachers too. So we're excited about that.
Cool. And Dan, some implementation strategy from Grossmont?
Yeah, and I do want to give the shout out to Franz Ruiz, who is the science mastermind behind all of this work. He and I sat down a few years ago, and I shared sort of the vision, and we helped form it from there. And he's done some amazing work, and we'd be in a much different place without him running that show, that part of the show. So definitely, he deserves a lot of this credit here. And he's on vacation enjoying himself and his summer. So as far as us, we you know, since these are now the adopted books, the adopted resources, that is the expectation that teachers begin transitioning over to that. What we're not going to do is purchase more textbooks. So as you know, but we are a pretty decentralized district, I'll say. We have 10 high schools, and they all sometimes feel like 10 different places when I work with them. So some schools are going at a faster pace with adoption than others, and we are supporting whatever pace the school has decided to go with. But the district support is all around these materials. So for there are some super veterans, we'll call them, that are doing their thing, and we're doing our best to encourage them to move over. And as the CAST test in science starts to take on, there's going to be more reason to make the switch over. For the teachers who are making the switch over, we're providing deep dives into the full day workshops, into the materials. We also have not only Franz, who's a digital learning coach, TOSA, teacher on special assignment. We have a science specialist as well, curriculum specialist, and her name is Annika. And Franz and Annika are working with all our science teachers to get them into the resources, understand how to use them, help them build 5E lesson plans that bring in these materials, and get them in the classrooms. So it's sort of grassroots. It's kind of we've always called our OER materials teacher-driven, district-supported, and so we are taking that approach with this as well, just because of the culture of the district. But no teacher who wants help or wants to use these resources, of course, is being refused the support to make that happen. We are actively evangelizing these resources and pushing them out there and sharing them with teachers and letting them know how to do that. And we have been, keeping all of these things in Google Documents and organizing that way. And we will be using a learning management system and integrating with CK-12 to better organize and deliver the materials as we move forward.
Cool. And I think you bring up a good point. I think some of the most successful implementations of CK-12 district-wide have been to districts who are not only supporting teachers, but also supporting at the district level people to make some of this happen. Because I think it's unrealistic for us to assume, oh, teachers can just make a biology book on their prep period. Okay, and that's sometimes, people see dollar signs of all the $1.8 million I can save. And as, Christine Ishmael, who developed the Go Open movement, often jokes, she goes, CK-12 is free like a puppy, not free like a beer. And because, it's not that you just save $1.8 million and you can use that for something else. You mentioned buying probe devices and, providing training. And Beth, you mentioned, continual training throughout the year to make your products better. I mean, the nice thing about CK-12 is that they're fully customizable. Beth, can you touch briefly at the district level, what kind of support have you guys dedicated in order to make CK-12 happen?
Yes, I can. Before I do that, though, I want to make sure, because I just saw that he joined the chat. It's David McMartin, and he is our science TOSA. And much like Franz, none of this would be possible without David. He was really the catalyst to make all of this happen, in the conduit between our idea generating here at the district office, and then going back and forth with our high schools and our middle schools. So Dave, whenever you want to raise your hand and chime in here, buddy, please do. So first of all, I guess I would ask Carl, when you talk about support, maybe if you are thinking in specific terms, but a couple of things I just jotted down I think that are important are making sure that your larger district teams are involved from the beginning, from the inception, right. So that they know what you want to do. I mean, in Dan's case, it sounds like, that there was some clear ideas from the district level about going open education, which is great. I know another district here, Carlsbad Unified. I know that was something that their superintendent wanted to do. So it was important for us we had a new superintendent. It was important for us to make sure that our associate superintendent, who oversees my department, learning support services, was involved, so she could communicate all of what we wanted to do with the superintendent. We had meetings with principals. We involved the teachers union in what we were planning to do, so that we had, everybody's understanding about how we wanted to move forward. Districts like Grossmont and Carlsbad were extremely helpful for us, because they had presented at the Open Education OER workshops that we have here in San Diego about once a year. And so we got great ideas from them in terms of how they were able to work with their different their different groups and make sure everybody was in the know and in support of this work. So, so utilizing what others have done before you is always helpful. I think for us, some of those pieces had to be kind of fleshed out so that they worked for our folks. But having sort of that roadmap for us was really helpful. We also knew that by adopting digital material, we were going to need to have some devices in the hands of our students and teachers at the school sites.
Sure.
So one thing that we were able to do in our discussions with our associate superintendent was make sure that we had dedicated Chromebooks and Chrome carts in each of the classrooms of the teachers who were going to be adopting CK-12. That was really huge. I would say it was also an incentive, for the teachers. I think that they recognized the quality of the CK-12 materials right away and could see very easily how they would fit into the work, like I said, we are already doing with our units. But knowing that they're not going to have to worry, about reserving a computer lab or a Chrome card on campus that you have to reserve, but they were going to have one dedicated in their classroom was really huge. So that was very important. We really appreciated our folks up here making sure that those were going to be provided for our teachers and kids.
Cool. All right. Well, we have a couple of people who've raised their hands. So I think first we'd like to go to Mohammed, who has a question. And Mohammed, if you can unmute now, and we'd love to hear what you'd like to ask. And with, as always, these case studies, it's a new feature. Not everyone is up to date on how to use it. Let's see if we can do that. Let's try to get Brandon's question in there. We've got another one, and then we'll see if we can get Mohammed a little later. All right, and that's the excitement of live entertainment here. So we're gonna pause on this. It is a new feature. I really encourage you guys to use the open Q&A window though, and post questions there. If you don't wanna talk live on camera, as we call it, that we put your questions in the Q&A window and we will answer all of them. It's so far pretty amazing, I think, work that both districts have done, and I like that it's not been done in the same way, and that you're both thinking about it from a broad perspective of how does this work in my district. So we have another question, Katie, if you can go ahead and ask us.
So our question in Q&A asked about a homeschool teacher and maybe presenting this great material to their school district because they're trying to think about, like, if they're coming from there and they want to present it to the district as a whole, do you have any ideas on how a homeschool parent might approach you accordingly?
So a homeschool parent has a great resource like CK-12 and wants to talk to the right people in the district. What advice do you have on who should they talk to?
In my district, it'd probably be in most districts, there's usually a curriculum director or potentially a subject area specialist. That might be one of the first stops to, in most districts, they have either a curriculum director or a subject area specialist.
Yeah, in our place we have, well, myself, I'm a curriculum director for secondary, but we also have homeschool liaisons. So whenever we have a new adoption like CK-12, we always communicate that with our homeschool liaison so that they can get those resources to the parents.
And I'll just re-emphasize something that both of them have said. In the San Diego area, the County Office of Education has done a really good job of kind of letting their schools and districts know about resources, and CK-12 has been really represented well there. And I think the county school, the county office also hosted a Go Open event, and you might look for these in your own area by going to the federal Go Open page, and we'll put that link in at some point. We can dig it up for you, but you'll see regional summits all across America of people sharing ideas, and I know that you guys have been to those, and those are really powerful because it's a great way to get the message out there. And I really encourage everybody. I know, Dan, I know you've presented a lot on CK-12 and what you guys have done there. And, that kind of message spreading is really, really important. So let's move on then to an additional question here. So how do you encourage your teachers to participate in the program? And did you incentivize it? And are you using any of your certified educators in your district?
So are these, I'm sorry, certified educators, CK-12 certified educators?
Yes, CK-12 certified. But more importantly, like how are you getting your schools involved in this and trying to figure out how to get them up and running? I know, like, you know, Dan, one of the things that you guys offer is like a complete menu of everything that you've board approved, and CK-12 book is of course one of the resources, and our Plix interactives and things. So just kind of what kind of professional development do you offer, that kind of thing?
Well, in Grossmont, we have, like I said, we have our deep dives, which are kind of an introduction to our overall OER resource, which like I said, the CK-12 stuff are sort of the foundational part of that. We also offer coaching. So our science curriculum specialists will work with either PLCs at a school or individual teachers for that matter, and our digital learning coach as well, Franz, who serves it in kind of a science capacity and a ed tech capacity, will go out and work with individual teachers. So it's always, we're trying to make individual connections as well as department and subject area, because I think that becomes an important piece, is just trying to stay on message. And you know, every district has you know, initiatives that come and go. I think that's an ongoing running bad joke in education of things that don't last. But here we are going into year 4 of this, and we have more teachers coming on each year. We've had teachers who were incredible skeptics at the beginning of this process. There's no way we can build our own textbook. Now who are going, oh wow, this isn't so bad. Not only is this not so bad, it's actually pretty good. And it's more comprehensive and more useful than that paper book that we bought for years and spent a ton of money on and became outdated the second it was printed.
Right.
And so again, continuing to sell the idea of a modern education requires up-to-date resources, student-centered activities, and building all of that. So the CK-12 and even the OER resources as a whole are really kind of like this foundational piece of rethinking about teaching as a whole. And if you're going to be rethinking about teaching and provide you know, an up-to-date modern experience for our students, you sort of have to use a new set of resources. Sure. That's what's sort of required to become adept in today's, you know, modern culture, politically, socially, economically. And so we've been staying on message with that. And as I move in this new position, it's even broadening even more as we're doing a full-scale UBL rollout across our district. All of those are going to be integrated into, you know, the messaging of our CK-12 stuff and our work before.
That's great. And it looks like we have a question or a comment from Dave McMartin, also in Poway. Let's see here. We have to, yeah, we can do this video. Sure. So we're just kind of working this out. These case studies are a unique opportunity for us to involve some of our participants here.
All right.
There you go. Welcome, Dave.
Hey, thanks. How's everybody doing?
Good. And actually,
Good.
I know you have some knowledge here on this exact question I was just posing about, like, how did you incentivize the kind of the knowledge and getting up to speed on CK-12? What has Poway done?
Well, you know, we did go to that Go Open Summit, which I thought was very, very helpful, especially in motivating myself and those teachers that happened to attend in going this direction with open resources. And as I had put in my comments, you know, Grossmont has been super helpful with their OER site, looking at their site, seeing how they've kind of done it. It's been great in showing our teachers an example of what could be done with going this direction. And, you know, I'm sure Beth has probably talked about our TLC program that we have for teachers to kind of incentivize teachers to move forward with the CEP program, the Certified Educator program through CK-12.
And what do you offer specifically there? Because that's what I would love to hear a little bit more, just to share the idea with others.
Sure. So one of the things that our district does in order to encourage professional development outside of the classroom is we run what's called a teacher learning cooperative, in which teachers can enroll in courses, either the ones that they create or ones that have been created for them around professional development. So the CEP program is perfect for that type of program, because what it does is it gives them an opportunity to learn concepts and ideas that they can then use in the classroom. And then they'll implement that. They'll kind of reflect upon, how that went with the students and student learning and student engagement. And then they can share that out with other teachers. And so, the CEP program is kind of a small course. It's worth like 5 points, and you need 40 in order to get a bump up in pay. If you get 40 points within a certain period of time, then they can get a 3% pay raise. So it's a really nice incentive to move forward with their professional development. So not only are we doing one this summer with the CEP program, but they'll also have one that will take place over the course of 8 months throughout the school year, in which they'll be implementing CK-12, collaborating with each other. How is it going? Sharing out what their successes and what their challenges might have been, and then kind of working through that and in order to make it really successful.
Great. All right. Well, I think we're going to go ahead and take a question from Gina, and Katie will try to get her on the line. And I think she has a verbal question. Gina, are you there?
Hi. Oh, okay. It's just showing my icon there. Hi. Great to participate. I kind of jumped in here a little bit late, but I just wanted to say I'm probably like the #1 CK-12 fangirl for sure. But I became a certified educator, I think like 3 or 4 years ago. When you first started the program, and Dave McMartin and Tanya, fantastic, real dynamic. We've had a struggle down here in Sweetwater. And I've been kind of pushing for district implementation, and so I'm just kind of looking at what we can do from here. I know that we've gone the storyline approach and incorporated CK-12. I've done the CK-12 Flexbooks myself. I've done one for our biology and our so biology for NGSS, and also an honors biology book for NGSS, and embedded phenomena and different things. And I use CK-12 with my students. I post to Google Classroom, and I just feel like I'm kind of like, I really want to. I've shared at the district level with all of our high schools. I believe we have 14 high schools now.
Wow.
Some of the attributes of CK-12 and uses and applications and everything. So I think I really admire the structure that some of these districts have. And I actually have we go back to school this week. And I have a meeting in 2 days with my superintendent of curriculum. And our meeting is about CK-12. So I really wanted to I was eager to participate today. So if there's anybody that has any maybe design as far as implementation, I really appreciate some of the more structural ideas that people have as far as getting teachers involved in professional development. I don't know how many of our Sweetwater teachers have been certified as CK-12 educators, but I definitely want to build that community.
Great. So here we have an example of somebody who did the certified educator program and has kind of been a voice within her district, and now is trying to get more attention from the district level. Any feedback or suggestions for her? And I'm sure there are a lot of people in Gina's shoes where they like what they've done with CK-12, and they really wish the district would go a little further with it to really reap all the benefits of customized content and the money savings. Thoughts on that?
I think you're making a great first step there, is meeting with someone who is a decision maker. I know the work that we did wouldn't have happened had I not first sold it to our assistant superintendent of ed services and our superintendent. And it was really, again, trying to modernize some of our practices and then the business services guy, of course, really loved the cost savings, and again, had to tell him it wasn't a total cost saving. We were reinvesting that money, or some of that money. We won't reinvest all 1.8 million, though. I mean, that's a given. But we will we'll have this ongoing, some of these ongoing costs. But you kind of got to get people higher up to believe in it, because I found, again, just in general, working at a district level position, is unless there's excitement about it from principals, from district administrators that are decent way up the ladder, then it's going to be more of an individualized grassroots program, which is going to happen. It sounds, Gina, like you're that teacher who's doing that. And I think I was that teacher years ago when I was in the classroom, who had completely abandoned the textbook myself years ago and was cobbling together stuff. But in order to go district-wide, you need district support, and that's the first step is to get the ear of people, and I would even say principals as well. Get them talking about it, and get them looking at how this could transform the classroom and address needs, especially with NGSS. Because while the state of California is providing a list of K-8 science materials, they're not at the high school level, and so there is this gigantic gap of resources. And there are going to be textbook companies that are going to put stickers on their books that say NGSS, because they've added a few things, just like what we saw with Common Core when it came about. And I think we're already seeing that, but they're not going to address some of the bigger picture. They're not going to be as interactive. So you need to sell keep selling those points, but keep, try and build a little army. One of the things that I also was able to do is I built momentum through teachers who then talked to their principals. It wasn't just me talking about it. It was teachers who were excited about this work, wanting to do it because they want to push things. I know in Sweetwater there's those teachers as well. So you just gotta, keep talking about it, get people on board, and build movement.
Yeah.
Beth, anything to add to that?
I would agree with all of those things that Dan said. The only a couple of things that I would add is I don't know if in Sweetwater you've gone through any adoption process, but that was super helpful for us, making CK-12 an option as part of an adoption process. At middle school, we looked at lots of other things, TCI, Amplify, so we could compare CK-12 to those other choices. At high school, I mean, like Dan said, it's like they slap a sticker on top of those books, and when our folks get in and look at them carefully, they realize, oh, this isn't where we need to be at all. And so even the most updated publisher materials for our high school teachers, those went off the table immediately. And so then you really do look at CK-12 and say, yeah, this is a quality offering here. So if you haven't done an adoption process, when you meet with your curriculum person, I would talk to her about making OER and CK-12 part of that process. Also, while I do agree with Dan in terms of getting the attention of people with the money savings, you do get people's attention with that. And there is a wonderful graph that's available it's an infographic through the Bureau of Labor and Statistics about some of the top consumer goods that have just blown up in terms of cost. And I forget exactly what the textbook cost has increased by like 800% or something crazy like that. So you could use that as a key talking point too. But you want to be careful there, because you don't want the adoption of an open education resource to become the rationale or the why for it only for the money savings, because there's so many other great things that it does for kids. So that's the only thing I would say there. And yes, I agree with Dan, starting small. And even when you talk to your teachers at your school or other schools in your district, show them how you've been able to use CK-12 and the simulations and Flixes and stuff within a unit or even within a lesson. And that makes it very palatable for people who've never used it before to then latch on to it. So starting small is always a good idea, I think, as well.
Sure. And the thing I'll add to both of what you've said here is that we have a lot of people who come to CK-12 because they want the highest quality content available for their students. And often this means it's content that's been localized. It's content that has student work in it and has content from other teachers in the district. It's like, this is the best content, as we know. You know, Carl in Palo Alto can't dictate curriculum to the world, okay? I don't know everything that your teachers are facing. And I think one of the best options you have is to take what we've done, which is great foundational content, and changing it. And people ask me, do independent schools use you? And I'm like, absolutely, because they've often historically given their teachers more prep time to create great content. And they love that they can come to CK-12 and create the content that is the best content. And indeed, it's always a plus that there's some money savings. But for the independent schools, because they expect their teachers, by giving them a little bit more prep time, that they want something out of it. What they want is high quality content. So, you know, that is there. I was also going to go back and mention, Dan, you mentioned a lot of publishers are just putting a stamp and calling it Common Core, and definitely we've seen that. And I will give a pitch now for the brand new, newly written books from the ground up, meaning for each one of the learning progressions in the Mathematics Common Core, we thought about what were the authors, Phil Darrow and Bill McCollum, trying to do here. And we've rewritten our middle school and high school courses now. And if you haven't seen those, go to ck12.org/CCSS, and you'll see our great books. The only ones that we have, Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2, which are also being used for integrated in high school. And then our live right now is the Math 8 book, and in the next few weeks, Math 7 and Math 6 are coming on board. And these are books that are written fully aligned to the spirit of what Common Core is. And I think we've seen products that aren't created that way don't work. You can't just slap a sticker on something. So, you know, like for me, I think that a lot of people have not seen those yet, and they are really the cutting edge of what we're doing. So, and their math, it's a nice compliment to what y'all are doing here. So let's hear now, what have been the roadblocks to adopting CK-12 along the way, and do you still have any today?
I'll jump in on this one. So Dan had mentioned before, I think, about, you know, sometimes getting, or early on getting pushback from teachers about creating their own books. And so that was a stumbling block initially, because we had to show them that, in fact, you're not creating your own book. This is actually a book that's already done for you. And really what it is vetting it, making sure it is what you need it to be, and then curating it if you want to make changes and so forth. So, and constantly, you know, updating that curation. So that was an initial stumbling block, I think, for our teachers. The other one has been around technology. So I mentioned that we've been able to get dedicated Chromebooks and Chrome cards in the classroom. I think an ongoing challenge for us in our district is we don't do a one-to-one like Grossmont does. So having, making sure that our students have access, not just to a device at home, but also to the internet is very important, and we're still figuring those pieces out. But it is concerning for our teachers because they want to assign homework, and they want to make sure that there's equity in terms of making sure that students have access. So I would say right now that is probably our biggest challenge that we're facing. Yeah. Dave, if you want to add anything.
The other piece is just getting new teachers around the mindset that because it's free, they have this idea that because it's free, it must not be of quality. And that was really a big push for us at the very get-go, was to show them that this CK-12 materials are vetted just like any other textbook, where you have, you know, professors from colleges that are looking over the materials and vetting it, just like a regular textbook would be. And that was really important, especially for our AP teachers. They were really kind of stuck on the vetting of the books to make sure that they were of quality, and so kind of getting them around that mindset, and also the idea that you know, we're doing this to save the district money. You know, that really has never been our push for this. It's always been about what's best for students. And it's been teacher driven. It hasn't been driven by the district office as much as a momentum that's been gained by the teachers, you know, seeing the product, understanding the product, and now wanting to move forward with the product, especially as they see what other materials are out there. And as Dan and Beth have both said, you know, what we're seeing out there is it hasn't changed. You know, it's still a general biology book that's you know, not aligned to standards. You know, it's everything. You know, it's everything that biology might incorporate, but it's not necessarily aligned to standards. So, you know, we haven't seen anything of quality out there to you know, for them to even want to go that direction.
And Dan, any comments on roadblocks?
Yeah, I would say initially it was making sure teachers were compensated fairly for doing the work.
Good.
And we didn't negotiated an MOU with the teachers union to make sure that people were paid appropriately, and that wasn't necessarily always the easiest process. However, it was an important process, and it put edges on the work that I really appreciate, that allows us to not get stuck. You know, like, this is what the MOU says, this is the direction that we're going, and sometimes, you know, I want to go further than that, and I can't, and sometimes it allows me to push further than people want, and that's been really good. Another roadblock that we've overcome is in California, at least, there's the Williams settlement that requires all students to be able to have access to materials at home and at school. And so traditionally in textbooks, they have a copy at home and they have a copy at school. So it was very important for us for the students to be able to download PDF versions of everything onto their Chromebooks before they were able to take them home, and also having the ability to print them out if we needed. And then this last year, we'll say our first official adoption year that we just finished for science, space and earth science and biology. Not many were printed, but there were some that were. But every kid, and I even worked with our county office to make sure that we were going to be compliant, and that was gonna work when they did their visits. And they even asked kids, show me your science book on your Chromebook, and they were able to go to the offline viewer and show that. And also, that initial reaction of fear of teachers that Beth noted, and they weren't writing textbooks, they were curating textbooks and bringing things together. I think that's super important, that they have more power than they ever had. Because I can remember early in my teaching career having kids read, there's a 20-page section in the textbook, and I'd have them skip paragraphs and pages, and the ability for now a teacher to maybe delete those parts they weren't going to use or move them around. I mean, that's super empowering as well. And so all with selling it is like the teachers get to kind of help put their students first, not just be stuck with what was printed at some point is cool. And of course, having Chromebooks, that for us, that came first, and that drove this conversation. And drove the teachers to want this, which allowed us to do the MOU with the union that allowed us to do the work. So all these little pieces, I'd say the series of roadblocks along the way, but working with as many people as possible to solve them, and not just being one person in a district office or one teacher in a classroom trying to do it. It's been very powerful getting lots of people to the table.
Great. And I will, go ahead.
Carl, let me add one other thing, because Dan mentioned this, and Dave and I both really are so thankful and grateful to districts like Grossmont who've led the way, and we learned so much from them. And the only thing I would say to listeners out there is, I was looking at all of the things that Grossmont had done, including their MOU that they shared at one of the, it was Carlsbad, I'm sorry. Carlsbad shared an MOU, but they got their original ideas from the one that they had constructed in Grossmont. And I thought it was so great. And I really wanted to make sure, like Dan mentioned, we had these parameters that were going to be put in place around the work. But just for your listeners, Dave and I put something like that together for our folks, and they found it overwhelming. So as we're rolling this out to our teachers, and I want to make sure, like Dan said, that they're going to be compensated for this work, and I was giving them an idea of what we would have in an MOU with the teachers union, and they were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. They weren't ready for that when we first began, and so we rolled that way back and decided then we would kind of wait and see. We have release days scheduled for next year, and then we will reconvene thinking about an MOU probably sometime in January. Like Grossmont did as well, we plan on printing the books because I mentioned, the access at home piece. But again, Dave and I go back and forth because I say, oh, let's make sure we have something printed for every student. And then Mr. McMartin will say, Beth, I don't think we're going to need a copy for every student. Let's listen to what Grossmont said. So it is, you have to be comfortable with just not knowing for a little while. And as you move along, then, teachers will tell you what they need, and then you will adjust from there. But it is different than, that adoption from a textbook company where this is what you get, and then you kind of move forward. This is very fluid, and you have to be ready for that.
Great.
And that's scary right there, the fluidness and then not knowing what exactly is, but that's the world we're living in. So we gotta sort of have to embrace it and go with it. And we've been happy so far.
Well, in the tech industry, we call that being agile. And that's definitely something that any district who implements things, great changes like this, there has to be some agility to it. I do want to mention, if you didn't see in the chat window, Dan went ahead and posted, they've created a whole OER website to share with the world everything they've done, which is, I think, I know that we've all, many of us have been to the website, and I use it often to show this is what the kind of thing we want to see more and more, is because, change doesn't always happen at the district level. So, being able to share some of what they've done is really great. You take an MOU or you take whatever you need, and I think that's great. We're going to ask a final question that we're going to wrap this up in case anybody needs to go, and then we'll hear from each of you on the last question, which is very simple. What's the last piece of advice you'd like to share with the districts adopting CK-12? So I'll give you a couple of minutes to think about that, and I think Katie's going to review some of our final slides.
Thanks, Carl. Yeah, we just want to, we've been sharing a bunch of resources, and some of the ones that have been posted in the chat window we'll add to that CEP Flexbook page probably by the end of this week, with references to Grossmont's OER or our Common Core pages or anything kind of that has come up within here. We'll try to add those into that CEP Flexbook. But I want to share a couple other good pages for you guys to keep in mind as you move forward. So this first one, ck12.org/overview, I think is a great one. It can be found in the bottom of your page or the Explore menu under CK-12 resources, or at this direct link. And that really goes into kind of a brief little description and then a matching video for each of our core offerings that CK-12 has. And that's a great introduction for someone that has no idea what we offer and doesn't really know where to start, to kind of look at that and even download the one-page flyer if you're just trying to kind of introduce someone to CK-12. We also offer webinars throughout the school year. So you guys are part of the Certified Educator Program this summer. At the end of the summer, we'll pull kind of one from each topic and add it to the archived webinars on this page. So you'll see the most recent version of those there. And then we'll also offer live webinars that your teachers can join. So if they're trying to learn more about CK-12, we recommend that they do that. I also highly recommend networking. If you go to the Certified Educator Program page and then click on the CEP Alumni tab, you can filter by location. This one has California. Anyone who's done our program and has chosen to put their name and information on here is on this page. And anyone with a little mail icon has the ability where you can just click on that and connect directly with them. So feel free to reach out to any other educators near you or covering a similar topic and kind of start a conversation with them. And that way you can build community and support as you go. We also recommend you join the Jumpstart for Educators forum. So that one is another good place to kind of post questions, start collaborating, work your way through that, and let us know if you have questions for upcoming PD or what that looks like. So the last option is to kind of link directly to us. Email us at jumpstart@ck12.org. We can try to connect you with some of these districts that have done amazing work, or answer your specific questions. And feel free to always post on social media about us and spread the word. So I think with that, I'm going to pass this back to Carl, and he'll ask a couple more questions of our panelists, kind of that last wrap-up one, and we'll go from there.
Great, thanks, Katie. So the question to both of you was, what's the last piece of advice you'd like to share with districts thinking about or adopting CK-12? Go for it. Who wants to start?
I can go.
Go for it.
I would say empower the teachers to own it. Teacher ownership of this process and the day-to-day work has been monumental, instrumental. You know, and I mentioned Franz earlier. Being kind of the lead in this, and the fact that it's not an administrator being the lead in this is actually kind of a big deal, because he's respected as a teacher and will be going back to the classroom after next year, and that's been I think an important part of it. And the teachers have been part of the process, consulted on the process, and have owned the process, and that's you know, the CK-12 work and all the stuff we're doing is theirs, not the district. It's these teachers who are doing it for their students together across schools, and that's been incredibly powerful. So again, it's teacher driven, district supported, and sometimes I feel the only thing I'm doing is signing timesheets, which I'm very happy to do.
It's a good problem to have,
because it's going, and that's not the only thing I do, trust me. But as far as the OER work, and especially in science, it's been, you know, the teachers have owned it and have made such great progress that I haven't had to manage them, which is really, really amazing. They're professionals, and they're living up and exceeding any expectations I or the other district administrators and principals have.
Great. And Beth for Poway, or Beth and Dave both, who'd like to give this last piece of advice?
I have a couple of things that I've jotted down. First of all, I'd say do things like today. I mean, reach out to other people. The collaboration is very, very important. You develop relationships with people outside of your district as well as people inside of your district. So that inside and outside collaboration is very, very important. Some parts of the process and the journey will be very easy. For example, we went and met with our physics teachers. They had a day to do professional learning, and Dave and I popped over to see how they were doing, and they told us we want to adopt CK-12. That was really easy. So that was an easy group. Other groups, you'll find them to be more challenging. Our chemistry teachers were much more skeptical, and they've been really impressed with the rigor of the textbooks through CK-12. But, you know, initially, they were not bought in, even though the physics teachers were. And so some of this journey will be harder than other parts of it, and you just have to stay strong and demonstrate that resiliency for your teachers, and they will stay with you. Make sure that you are over communicating with everyone in your system. Principals, not just the teachers, you got to talk to your associate superintendents, you have to talk to your principals, and you've got to celebrate every little thing that there is to celebrate that you're doing along this journey. Make sure that you communicate it and you celebrate it. And then the last piece I would say that I've found, I think, to be really helpful is making sure that you have some message that you say over and over again. And one of the things that I like to tell teachers is that you are trailblazing. You are trailblazing in our district. We have never done this before. Yeah, some things are really hard, but we are leading the way. And teachers really love, and principals too, they love to be part of something innovative. And so you got to make sure that you tell them that that's in fact what they are doing. And it's very inspiring.
Great. Well, to both of you, I say right on. You know, I always just, Trailblazers is the good one. I use Pioneers, and I think a lot of the people at the forefront of the OER movement who've really been able to take advantage and benefit by what's out there, you know, they're pioneers that took a chance and ended up in a better place. And, you know, and I think that's all we want for our teachers and students is we want to help them more. We want to give them better quality content and tools. And, you know, like, I think that's what it's all about. And that's why we are dedicated educators. So to both Dan and Beth and Dave and Gina who popped in and everybody else. We really appreciate everything that you do. I know our founder, Niru, often talks about paying it forward, and I appreciate you paying it forward today by sharing your expertise with so many people as part of the CEP program, because to me, that's what this is about. So thank you all for joining us. And this afternoon, I got to give a plug. If you know people that still want to join the CEP program, this afternoon is kind of the last opportunity as I present Getting Started with Flexbooks one last time for the people that are joining on Monday. So feel free to pick up the phone and call a friend and say, hey, Sarah, what are you doing this afternoon at 3 o'clock California time? Because there's still time to do that. Anyway, thanks to everybody. We really appreciate your great conversation and making this such a success. All right, have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.